Hello eFoil friends, Lake Powell friends, welcome to beautiful Lake Powell on this mild cloudy day. This video may or may not look familiar to some of you. I did a collaboration video with JetSurfing Nation on my initial review of the foil board by getfoil.com or Foil Incorporated. So this video is a follow-up video on things that have changed and my experiences, and to get more in depth comparing FOIL and WAYDOO, which are the two boards that I personally have experience with. Right off the bat, you'll notice that the WAYDOO board is not the color that you would expect. I have painted this board with Plasti Dip, Blaze Blue and Blaze Green on the bottom, blended to the top. The original color is right here inside the battery box, this gray color here. I would like you to know that both of these boards are early production boards. This WAYDOO was a Kickstarter board, and the foil board over here was also an early production board. In my initial video, I summarized my review and experience with the foil board as a great board for intermediate riders and up, and didn't recommend it for beginner riders. That assessment has changed largely in itself due to the upgrade that they've changed to the handheld remote. There is now speed controls on the handheld remote. The remote is a significant experience of any eFoil because it is the way that you control the speed and acceleration of the eFoil. This remote is super simple. It has one multi-function button. You could say that it's similar to the original iPhone, which also had a single multi-function button. This button is used for turning on and turning off the remote, and it is also used for speed controls now, which you double tap to go down and single tap to go up. There are 15 speed controls, and they are important not only for beginners but also experienced riders such as myself. Say you are someone who prefers to ride at a little bit more mellow speed, or just not the full speed capable of your eFoil. You can set the speed for something that would give you 20 miles per hour, and the full range of the motion of the trigger is now going to represent 0 to 20, or 0 to 15, 0 to 10, whatever you want to set your speed controls at. That's going to make the trigger less sensitive. It's going to give it the sensation of more range of control. Super awesome for beginners and for experienced riders. The screen is super bright. You're going to be able to see it on cloudy days like this and in sunny days. It's colorful. It's embedded in the remote with protective bezels. I don't think you're ever going to crack or damage this screen unless you hit it on a very pointed object. The trigger has a nice range of motion. It's nice and fat. You can really fill it out well. The remote itself, the design is very clean. There are no bolts visible. It is nice to hold. It is a little bit bigger and fatter than some remotes on the market, so those with smaller hands may or may not feel that it's a bit large. That's going to be subjective person to person, but it does have a nice feel. And there's no strict patterns for your fingers, so that you can hold it in any way you want to get that position, handhold position that's comfortable for you. The tether here has a floating wrist loop, and I've actually glued it together here just because I have no desire to unclip it, and I thought it would make it more secure. It never came unclipped or anything like that. This whistle does not come with it. It is a Fox 40 whistle used a lot by lifeguards. I recommend for the safety of anyone to attach a whistle somewhere to your life jacket, hang it around your neck, or put it on the lanyard of your handheld remote. It's a great place to put it. The WAYDOO remote has this key here, which is for putting the battery in and out of the battery compartment. This orange thing is actually a holder for the bolts of the mast. This also does not come with it and was 3D printed from a company called Utensil. This remote is also great. The screen is a little smaller and the brightness has improved. This is actually my second remote. I'll be talking more about the other remotes and customer service and replacements of both brands later in the video. This one has a designated power button and a minus and plus for the power controls. The WAYDOO has 24 gears, they call it, for their power controls. This remote is a little bit less clean in design, especially since I put some shoe goo around the seams and the bolts. And that was because I had to get that one replaced due to some water damage and I was paranoid. Alright, so the trigger is there. The WAYDOO is a little bit smaller, but it's still very functional and you can find it. It's grippy, has a little bit of grip to it. It's slightly less range of motion than the foil board, but I've really had no problem with either remotes on the overall experience of using them. This one has a little bit more ergonomic permanent placements for fingers, but I don't think most people are gonna have any problem with either of these remotes. They're both nice in the hand and they've been a great experience for both. To Bluetooth the remote, all you have to do is simply place it on the magnetic cradle on the side of the battery. The foil battery, I think, is the coolest battery on the entire market. It holds your remote, it charges your remote, it Bluetooths your remote. You're never gonna forget your remote as long as you have it on the battery. But even if you do forget to charge your remote, you can just put it on the battery while you're assembling your board and it'll be ready to go by the time you have your board assembled and ready to go in the water. The WAYDOO battery has two buttons. There's a power button and there's a Bluetooth button. Both of these buttons have to be pushed in the proper sequence in order to activate them. So when you're standing on the board, there's no problem of accidentally stepping on these buttons and messing up the Bluetooth or powering on, powering off your board simply by stepping on them. So for this one to Bluetooth it, you have to do the proper sequence as with many devices on the remote and on the battery itself. The foil battery has no buttons at all, so you have no points of failure or wearing out with any buttons on the foil battery. When you plug in the charger or the power cable from inside the eFoil board, it will turn on from plugging it in. That action of plugging in the battery is also a safety feature that the battery will not be activated until you have plugged it into a charger or into the board. You will actually hear a click, and when you're plugging it into the board itself, you will hear the click followed by some beeps, which will let you know that everything is paired and ready to go. You will also hear some beeps with the WAYDOO when it is paired and ready to go as well. Inside the battery box there is a magnet, and also on the bottom of the battery itself another magnet, which is part of the safety features of the WAYDOO battery, that it will not fully activate until those magnets are properly aligned. When plugging in the battery, the WAYDOO has the absolute simplest design you could possibly make. It is simply a plug to plug. No cables whatsoever. However, there is no battery box that you could potentially store something in. Foil is also very simple. It is just a plug to a cable. One simple cable. There is also additional room inside the battery box that you could potentially put a 6-pack plus an additional can of beverage in the battery box. Yes, 7 cans of beverages. Just for a visual on how much extra space there is in the battery box. Your keys, you can put your wallet, you could carry some water, some drinkable water. So I think foil possibly has the most room inside the board to carry some additional supplies if that is something that is important to you. Otherwise you'll have to have a dry bag on your back. All right, let's talk about the masts. WAYDOO has 2 mast length choices. This is the longer mast choice, and FOIL currently only has one length of mast choice. WAYDOO has a unibody design, which means that the motor and the wings are all on the very bottom and all in a line. Over on the FOIL, the motor, the fuselage, is higher up from the wing at the base. Unibody designs are often believed to be more beginner friendly than the separate fuselage in regards to breaching, which means that the motor breaches the surface and you're riding too high. Generally, people believe that this type is more easy to recover from. In my personal experience, when I'm riding normally and not purposely trying to breach, I feel that my recovery is the same and the number of times that I crash is the same. When I'm doing it on purpose, however, I seem to have better recovery with the WAYDOO than the FOIL, which is very strange. So when I'm doing it on purpose, I can hold a breach position better on the WAYDOO than the FOIL. But when I'm just out there riding and I'm not trying to do weird breach maneuvers on purpose, I feel like they're both easy to recover from. It may depend on the speed, it may depend on how I'm carving. I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of a weird thing that happens with me. Both boards assemble with a total of 6 screws. Very easy to assemble. The WAYDOO has 2 bolts in the mast, 2 bolts in the front wing, 2 bolts in the back wing. The FOIL has 4 bolts in the mast and 2 bolts in a unibody wing design. Both are super easy to assemble. Both are super easy to plug in. Both are going to get you in and out of the water faster than anybody else. All right, let's talk about wings. WAYDOO has only 2 front wing options. The wing that you see here on my board is the largest option. This is the Explorer wing. This wing is going to give you much more lift, much more stability, and allow you to ride at much slower speeds. I personally prefer the Patroller wing, which is their smaller one. It rides a little bit faster and it will give you much more maneuverability. This one is going to be better for people who prefer a mellow ride, maybe beginners, but it has so much lift that some people may do better with the Patroller wing. It's just going to depend on person to person. I can ride this thing at like 9 miles per hour. And it's super stable, super easy to learn on. The wing over here on FOIL is the 2nd largest wing that they currently make. This is the 200 high aspect wing. This is another reason that I initially gave the FOIL a intermediate riders and up suggestion. But now they have additional larger wings for much more stable rides, better for beginners. The next size up is a 250. I'm guessing that buying the 250 wing would have a similar experience as the Explorer wing. So if you are looking for a super mellow ride, want as much stability as possible, even though the 250 high aspect wing is recommended for 200 pounds riders and up, you may consider it if you're a person who prefers a slow, mellow ride and looking for the most stability possible. Speaking of the wings, I would advise that you run your finger around the perimeter of your wings of the WAYDOO. My wings were very sharp on the ends, and on my very first day of learning to ride, I was too overconfident, too excited, a little bit too tired, and I was trying to stand up really wobbly, and I fell into the wing, which is not what you want to have happen. And the wing hit me right between my swimsuit and my life jacket, and I got a cut. And that's when I discovered how sharp they were on the ends. And I sanded it down until it was about 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters on the end. The FOIL does not have these excessively sharp edges. So definitely, if you buy a WAYDOO or any other FOIL from any other brand, I would personally check the edges, the perimeter of your FOIL, and see if there are any sharp edges that you personally feel are overly sharp, and you can sand those down. All right, let's talk about board shape and design. The FOIL board has amazing striking colors, bold text, angular, stealthy design. The foil board is possibly the most standout, recognizable board on the market. However, I'm not fully convinced that the shape is the most user-friendly. These wide hips, in my personal opinion and experience, possibly lending to being used to the WAYDOO, is when the water hits these hips, these wide hips here on touchdowns. The point of riding a foil is to be above the water and flying, but in cases where you do touch down, the water tends to hit these corners that stick out a bit, which will in turn pull the board more into that dive, and oftentimes I have a hard time recovering from touchdowns where the corner digs into the water. I'm curious if these hips were brought in and then the volume from the hips was brought to the nose, if the design would be a little bit more forgiving on touchdowns. Another feature of the angular design of this board that could be improved for more forgiving experience on the surface of the water and touchdowns is the hole shape. The hole shape is very flat with an abrupt rocker line, which means that it kind of, again, it's angular, just like the perimeter of the board. The bottom of the board also has an abrupt angle as it turns up toward the nose of the board. The hull of the WAYDOO has some features on the bottom. It has a continuous rocker, and the bottom features, when you touch down, will disperse the water better than the flat surface of the foil board. The EVA padding on the foil board is very durable. It's a little bit more firm than what is present on the WAYDOO. The WAYDOO also has a diamond pattern that's not quite as raised. It's softer, possibly less durable, has a slight texture on the diamond pattern. But something about the WAYDOO board, even though it's made out of foam instead of carbon fiber, it also lends to the WAYDOO still having a little bit more of a beginner-friendly edge than any board, not just the foil, but any board on the market. This foam is really easy on the knees. When you're learning, you're going to spend a lot of time on your knees getting up and down off of your foil board. It'll also be more friendly for potential crashes where body-to-board contact happens. I always wear a helmet, even though I'm an experienced rider. I've never needed the helmet. But whether you're riding a WAYDOO or a carbon fiber or a fiberglass board, I recommend wearing a helmet while you're learning or if you're riding alone. But something that you should know, you'll notice some scratching here. Do not let your cats have access to your boards. They will scratch up the EVA foam. My cat is destroyed. Well, destroyed's a strong word. They've scratched up both my boards, the board itself and the foam on that board. So don't leave your boards out where your pets can get to them.
Pausing briefly here to discuss another animal, a small creature known as quagga mussels. Quagga mussels are a very problematic invasive freshwater mussel that ranges from the size of microscopic to the size of a dime. Any and every watercraft, regardless of size, must clean, drain, and dry their boat. The WAYDOO Flyer 1, because of its foam core, will absorb a small amount of water, about as much as a cup or so. And because of this, the WAYDOO Flyer 1 will most likely have to be stored for 30 days before it is used in any other water. This is something you should consider before buying or bringing a watercraft to any body of water such as Lake Powell with invasive species. Please go to www.stdofthesea.utah.gov for more information.
You may have noticed that the foil board has no handles, as you see on the WAYDOO and most any other brand. That is also something that has changed and is changing in the foil boards, is that handles are being added to the sides of the boards. If you do not have handles on your board, it's not a big issue. The points where I've wished that I've had handles is when I'm carrying it to and from my car. As far as carrying the board into the water, even if I had handles, I'd be doing the same thing that I'm doing now, which is after I've assembled my board, I put the mast over my shoulder and I carry it down into the water without the battery. The battery alone is 40 pounds, which I think is the biggest battery on the market. The WAYDOO battery is about 27 pounds. So I carry the board down, put it in the water, open the hatch, and then I carry the battery down and place it in while it's in the water. Then I'm only carrying half of the weight of the board at a time. This battery has been submerged tested. There's little worry of getting water on it. You're going to get a little bit of water inside the compartment when you open and close the hatch, especially when you're loading and unloading your board into the water the way that I and some other people do. So the sound of the boards, the WAYDOO is going to be quieter than the foil board. That's in respect to these boards being early production boards, and also in respect to boards that are current. The WAYDOO will be quieter than the foil, but this is also because the foil does have a more powerful motor. You will hear a bit of a whiny noise in the sound of the motor, and that is the early production models. There has been a frequency update which makes the motor a lot quieter and does not have the whiny high-pitched noise to the motor anymore. Updates brings me to the topic of customer service. So customer service, my battery behind me now had an initial problem, which many people had in the very early days, which required the battery to be sent into the factory because the app was not available yet at that time. I live here at Lake Powell. If you know where Lake Powell is, this is one of the most remote spots in the continental 48. I've always thought and experienced that overnight shipping is impossible unless you're shipping from maybe Las Vegas or Phoenix. I was able to get my battery shipped to Florida, where the factory is, in 24 hours or less. And it came back to me after being fixed, again, in 24 hours or less. And then I had a similar problem where I had to get my remote replaced. And instead of going on to Facebook, because the owner of FOIL himself, Kyle, and also other employees of FOIL are very active on the social media pages and on Facebook, which is awesome and amazing. So I called about the problems that I had with my remotes. There was a software issue in regards to updating to the new speed controls, and it was determined that I needed a new remote. And again, I got my remote. They sent me a new one, and I got it in less than 24 hours. So to see shipping to and from Florida 3 times in less than 24 hours just blows my mind. I didn't think it was possible. But not only that, when I called and was talking to the FOIL team, within 30 minutes to an hour, Kyle, the owner of FOIL, had discovered my issue, and he contacted me personally via the Facebook Messenger because I'm on the Facebook group. So to have Kyle take that step to make sure everything was taken care of and that I was getting my remote back in a timely manner is just the most stellar customer service I think I've had of anything in my entire life. That may not always happen, especially as FOIL grows for every person, but for me and my personal experience, customer service is amazing. So, customer service for WAYDOO. When I had my WAYDOO, it was more prime into the COVID, and I had to get my remote replaced because of water damage. It wasn't so water damage that I couldn't use it, but definitely some features were missing and the screen was impacted dramatically. So I had to get a new remote, and the replacement of the remote took a little while, but I would say it was only a couple of weeks maybe, which I thought was pretty quick, especially in regards to, as I mentioned, it was prime COVID time. And there's also some active members of WAYDOO on the social media pages as well. So I would say that for me personally, my customer experience with WAYDOO has also been quite good. It's not the most straightforward thing, but I've never had problems with updating my WAYDOO board via the app. But I would say the update experience on FOIL is much simpler and much more straightforward. Anyone can download the app and check it out. The app for FOIL is pretty simple right now. They don't have any GPS tracking features yet, though that should come later in the year or maybe next season. WAYDOO does have some tracking, but if you want to track your ride, you can simply use your cell phone and a dry bag or a Garmin watch. There's lots of ways that you can track your ride if you want to do so. The biggest problem that I had with WAYDOO is there is no HIN, which is like a VIN for your watercraft. In Utah and Arizona and most states, you're going to have to register a motorized watercraft of any size, any horsepower. You can see here, this is an HIN plate. I had this custom made and installed in the board, but it took me 1 month to track down the information for this number, as well as the MCO or MSO, which stands for Manufacturer's Statement of Origin or Manufacturer's Certificate of Origin, and the bill of sale, which is like a receipt. There's several different paperwork that you need to register your watercraft, and it took me a month in order to get those pieces of information in order to register my watercraft. And then I had to custom make this HIN. There's also another one on the back of the board, and I have a video about how I installed them. So that was my biggest problem. It only took me about 30 minutes to get my registration at the DMV in Utah, but it took me a month to get the paperwork. I don't know if that's changed or not. Registration on the FOIL board is going to be a breeze. There is an HIN inside. It's on the opposite side here. And there's also an HIN near the hole of the insert of the mast. 2 HINs, which is pretty common of any watercraft to have one on the back of the boat and somewhere in the engine, or in this case, the battery compartment. And being made in the USA, it's going to be even easier at your DMV or at the Game and Fish. In Arizona, you're going to need to go to the Game and Fish, and in Utah, you're going to have to go to the DMV. You will also need to show that you've paid tax. You can pay tax at the DMV in Utah, but you'll have to go to the Bureau of Revenue or email them to pay tax in Arizona. So wherever you're at, Arizona, Utah, or a totally different state, make sure you look up what you need, where you need to go, and have everything together before you travel to your proper location for registering your watercraft. And also find out your local waterways if there are any requirements there as well, such as this purple sticker, which is the annual sticker for Lake Powell itself. FOIL Inc. offers more board sizes, more color options, more wing options, more options in general than WAYDOO offers. Again, the only thing that WAYDOO offers in options more than FOIL does is mast lengths. Something that I forgot to mention about the safety features of the FOIL battery is I believe that FOIL Inc. was the first company to announce their batteries, the individual cells inside, being wrapped by a phase-changing carbon-based material, which should give many people a peace of mind that the battery is one of the safest on the market. You can take additional precautions if you desire to put your battery in a battery safe, such as one designed by Zargus, and you can look online for other methods of creating a battery bunker or battery safe. It is up to you to store your battery in a way that is safe for you and your household and your family. In regards to battery power, ride time, or ride distance, FOIL offers one of the largest batteries on the market and is one of the main decision factors for my choice to purchase a eFoil from Foil Inc. or getfoil.com. The battery is 40 pounds, and because of the cold, I've only tested it to 50%, riding with this 200 high aspect wing, which is their most efficient size, riding at an efficient but still fun 13 miles per hour average speed. I was able to ride from Wallweep down to the dam and back and still had 60% power remaining. I rode around the marina until it was 50%, at which point I put on a little over an hour, about an hour and 5 minutes I think it was, and 11 and a half or so miles. With the WAYDOO battery, I've used the WAYDOO about 100 times, and so its life has been depleted a little bit from its use. When it was fresh and new, I could barely go from Wallweep to the dam and back. I recently did a range test, and I rode it with the large wing at an efficient 12 miles per hour and was able to get 9 miles of range. So if you're someone like me who wants to not only ride for a long time, but go the distance, definitely look into FOIL and buy the extended range battery. Otherwise, you can get the normal battery. You're still gonna go a long way. And later this year, when it gets a little warmer, maybe in April, I plan to do a marina to marina to marina ride. That's right, from Wallweep to Antelope and back. I'm not sure if I can do it, but I'm gonna need someone to follow me, and hopefully I'll make a video of that, so definitely subscribe. Another thing about customer care, FOIL has announced a 2-year warranty that comes standard with the eFoil. You can opt for a 3rd year for an additional fee. Definitely a statement that they stand behind the product that they are building. Another thing that FOIL offers that I haven't really seen elsewhere is a referral program. I have a link that you can find in the description of the video and also in the comments that you can get $250 of customization credit. You could get a color other than white, because if you want to get a different color, you'll have to pay for that. There's a few other customizations that you can use that $250 for. So if you'd like to benefit me and yourself, you can look for my link there. Or if you know someone else who owns a FOIL, you can ask them for their referral code and link so that they can benefit from your referred purchase into your own FOIL board. Purchase price, FOIL is going to start at about $7,000 depending on the customizations and the model that you purchase. WAYDOO is going to start at $6,000. One of the big differences that comes with the purchase is WAYDOO comes with a bag for your board and for your mast and equipment.
Price and battery range segue into the conclusion of this video because price and battery range are easily the 2 most common questions asked of me, especially by those new to eFoils. The WAYDOO Flyer 1 was a great introduction to eFoiling. Its familiar, forgiving board shape is easy to use. The foam material is soft on the body and can take some abuse, to a certain extent, except cat claws and other sharp objects. Powerful enough to advance past beginner, and I learned to ride normal and switch stance. FOIL offers greater performance, higher quality, and far more options for just $1,000 more. For example, let's compare price and battery range while ignoring many of the other options that FOIL offers. Starting with the base FOIL eFoil, let's change to a better wing for beginners, and let's upgrade to the extended range battery, which is double the range of the WAYDOO based on my experiences. We will add a bag because WAYDOO includes a bag, and the price is now $8,400 or $234 a month. WAYDOO Explorer Package Short Mast is $5,900.
Add a second battery for $2,600 to equal FOIL range of the extended battery. WAYDOO now costs $100 more than FOIL. Even more so if you subtract the $250 customization credit that my referral link can provide. The greater options, performance, and quality may not be important to everyone. For those, WAYDOO will be a fantastic eFoil option. WAYDOO's suggested maximum load is 220 pounds. If you are a heavier rider, I would suggest getting a FOIL eFoil because the board has a greater volume and greater buoyancy, which will be better for heavier riders. You may also consider upgrading to the 9 horsepower motor for additional performance and power to get you up and out of the water and flying. The value of FOIL is hard to beat. As a young American brand, FOIL is growing fast and making an impact. Regardless of what hydrofoil you ride, keep your eye on FOIL because FOIL is turning heads. And remember, live life to the fullest.